So, folks, if you have your eye on any one of the branches that you want to buy, you can buy them. They're now really cheap. I mean, Bank of America is going to close a number of branches, and some of them will be beautiful. And so is in London. London has some really good bank branches because it's a hub for banking. Every country's bank is in London, and so they are in New York too. But in London, they have a better, good-looking ones, and they're all having a problem. And folks, Forbes is recommending there's no reason for you to put the money in the bank. You can go to Schwab. They can give you unlimited. In other words, you can write as many checks as you want. They will not charge you any money for it. They'll even give you 0.25% interest if you have your money in there. Fidelity will give you 0.1, and there is no penalty, nothing of that sort. Whereas if you deal with the bank, there are all kinds of penalties and others. In fact, the biggest advantage Fidelity gives you is they give you American Express card with no membership charge, which is pretty good. I mean, Gold American card costs you some money, right? Well, I think it's what, $50 a year or something?
These bank branches, it just goes to show you that how, the internet and technology is really changing so many paradigms we've grown up with. In London and New York, many of these buildings were iconic. The architectures we remember from these cityscapes are often bank buildings. And so the fact that these banks no longer have to or have the ability to show their power and prowess through their bank lobbies, the internet has completely taken that out from them.
That's right.
Well, folks, the economy might be starting to show signs of success across the country, but here in D.C., the economy is quite strong, and that's usually the result of government contracting, which is very, very lucrative here. And the Washington Post did a feature story on just how successful some of the local people here in D.C. area have done. One of the ladies featured in this article is Miss Anita Talwar. She is an Indian American. She's 59 years old, immigrant from India, and she used to be just a clerk in the federal offices, but she started a company in 1987, and by 2004, she had sold it. If you can imagine, 350 employees, $100 million company in annual revenues. She's just one of the success stories here. There are several others featured, but what it goes to show you is that the federal government really has a lot of money. And if you live in and around the Washington, D.C. area, there's all sorts of ways to try to get to that federal pool of money by basically going after minority contracts. There are lots of provisions that the government basically makes to have certain contracts only go to certain eligible types of local employment. And so this way, a lot of local people who've started companies have done extremely well.
Not only local, but there are some mega companies that were located in California and the Midwest and New York, and they're all coming to Washington, D.C., folks, because they know money is in Washington, D.C. nowadays.
That's the other point this article makes, is that, you can say that there is a rich tech hub in California and in other major metropolises, and that's true, but what makes D.C. unique is that there's a constant supply from the federal government of these very rich contracts. And let me just share some numbers here with you. There are more than $80 billion in federal contracting that will flow to this region this year. I mean, that's a staggering statistic, and that's up from $4.2 billion in 1980. So in 30 years, just think about the change in the number of dollars here.
That's why these companies here in Washington, D.C. are very scared of this upcoming cut. They're going to cut up to $1.5 trillion, and where do you think it's going to be felt badly? It's going to be felt in that particular circle.
I think so, but I think the contracting within the federal space is so inherent to things moving forward and to this reform that even if the government wants to achieve some of these cuts and make them effective, it's going to have to rely once again on contracting dollars to make those things happen. So no matter what, it's part of the infrastructure for the government moving forward.
Yeah, but, at the same time, I must say that there's going to be some pairing off some of the IT companies on the other companies, or you're going to have to compete. And when you compete, you're not going to make as much money as Anita Talwar made between 87 and 2004.
She definitely got in early, and good for her, as many other people did too. And just to share with you some of these neighborhoods, it used to be that Potomac was the one place where everybody lived, and
yes,
the median income there was typically north of $500,000. But now there are other neighborhoods where you're starting to see the same kind of wealth distribution, and the one chronicled here was Great Falls community,
yes,
which is not Potomac, but yet it shares the same demographics, if you will, as
Yeah.
Potomac and many of these other communities. So in and around D.C., you're seeing these neighborhoods emerge, pockets of people that are just basically enjoying the good life in a major way.
They worked hard for it.
They did.
They
and
made
they
the
employ.
money.
To their fairness,
They're
they're
allowed.
employing local people.
They're just like Warren Buffett. Tax me, you know. I mean, that's what they do.
They're all basically ready to pitch in.
That's right. Folks, before you know it, Christmas season will be upon us. And at that time, you would want to know which is the hottest toy. Every year you go through a hottest toy. Well, this time, Toys R Us got it nailed, because they're the only ones who can carry this particular one. It is a robot. Actually, this is a robot that was invented by a fellow in Japan, a robot that actually is emotive. In other words, if you're sad, he's sad with you. You put music, he starts to dance. You put a fast music, he'll dance fast. Slow music, he'll dance slow. And never to repeat the same step. In other words, always different. Now, you know, kids get kind of tired of something that, you know, after they've gone through the cycle of motions that they do. But this robotic, it's going to cost approximately $50. It's going to be the best toy your kids can have. And if your child is an autistic, they found out in a research study that the kids can talk to this particular toy.
It's an interactive toy. But you know what? Toys like this make me wonder, why don't people just get a dog? Right?
Dog is a lot of maintenance, by the way.
Yes, that is true. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see how this is received, especially since it has that angle of maybe being helpful to autistic children, and that's a growing pool of kids.
One of the kicking sales point of this particular toy is that some of the proceeds will go to the Autistic Society for the prevention of this particular disease in the future.
Well, good. Finally, a toy that has a conscience.
Yes. Folks, Anna Hazare, who's the activist, you know, Lokpal Bill, he's the one who's pushing for it. The government wants to squash it or water it down. He's the one who started his protest this week, hunger strike, and he has told everyone in India, you can go to jail, fill the jails. He said, protest, no one should be able to stop you if it's a nonviolent protest, which is what Gandhi did. Now, the reason being is corruption. Corruption in India is very bad. And people are coming up with different ideas how to control it. One of them I thought was very interesting. It says, ipaidbribe.com. You go there, you actually, the only thing you will read is people that paid bribes. They will not identify the person who received the bribe, and they will not identify the person who gave the bribe. And they will not allow you to put pictures or videos up there, because what they're saying is, we want to make sure through these stories we produce a fear of God in all of them so that they stop taking the bribe.
Good.
It's not their job to have claims and counterclaims and somebody's making up stories and the others. And I thought the idea was very good. They also encourage you to say, I refuse to pay the bribe.